If you are over 60 and you are noticing more little memory slips, losing your keys, walking into a room and thinking, what did I come in here for? And on top of that, you are wrapping half your meals in shiny foil. This video is very much for you because there is a lot of talk about aluminum foil and Alzheimer's disease, and some of it is scary, some of it is misleading, and some of it is actually useful. And today we are going to sort out which is which in plain language so you can protect your brain without feeling afraid of your own kitchen. Now let us set the stage together. You and I both know that memory changes with age. That is normal. Taking a bit longer to find a word, needing a list at the grocery store, that is part of getting older. But Alzheimer's disease and other dementias are something very different and very serious. When you start hearing that something as ordinary as the foil in your kitchen might be linked to Alzheimer's, it makes sense to ask yourself if you should stop using this right now. You might wonder if you are quietly harming your brain with every baked potato. Here's an honest, balanced way to look at it. Scientists have been studying aluminum and the brain for decades. Some research has found that very high long-term exposure to aluminum, for example, through certain drinking water, and some workplaces might be linked with a higher risk of Alzheimer's. Some estimates have suggested that people with chronic high aluminum exposure could have around a 70% higher risk compared to those with low exposure, although not all studies agree. At the same time, major health organizations point out that everyday aluminum from things like standard antiperspirants, aluminum pans, or normal use of foil has not been proven to cause Alzheimer's disease. They say there is little solid evidence that typical contact with aluminum in day-to-day life meaningfully raises dementia risk. So why am I still talking to you about foil? Because after 60, your body changes. Your brain becomes more vulnerable to inflammation and toxins. Your kidneys and liver may not clear things as easily as they used to. At the same time, the science is still evolving. Some newer reviews suggest that environmental aluminum could play some role in dementia risk, even if we do not yet have a simple clear cause and effect. That means we are in a gray zone. We do not need panic, but we also do not need to shrug and say, oh, well. Instead, we can do the smart thing, especially as older adults. We can gently reduce unnecessary sources of aluminum and other metals, where it is easy to do so, and focus on clear proven ways to protect the brain. Growing older does not mean giving up, it means using smarter strategies. In this video, we are going to walk through what actually happens when you wrap your food in aluminum foil, how that might affect your brain and body as you age, which situations are more concerning, and just as important, what to use instead. By the end, you will have a simple checklist in your head so that every time you cook or wrap leftover, you know exactly how to keep your brain and your body safer. It is not too late to make a change, even if foil has been your best friend in the kitchen for 40 years. Before we jump in, if staying sharp, mobile, and independent matters to you, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. We share senior health tips that are often overlooked, especially when it comes to the brain. And while you are here, let me know in the comments where you are watching from and how old you are. I love seeing our community of 60 plus 70 plus even 80 plus viewers from all over the world. All right, let us talk about that shiny roll in your cupboard. Aluminum foil is simply very thin sheets of aluminum, the same metal that shows up in soda cans, some cookware, certain medications, and even the water and food in nature. Aluminum is one of the most common metals in the Earth's crust, so we are all exposed to it in tiny amounts every single day. Your body actually handles small amounts fairly well. Most of it passes through your gut without going into your bloodstream. What does get absorbed is usually filtered out by the kidneys and leaves in your urine. So where do scientists start to get worried? The concern begins when the total exposure gets high and especially when the metal builds up in sensitive tissues like the brain. In animal experiments, very high doses of aluminum can damage nerve cells and cause changes similar to those seen in dementia. In some human study, higher levels of aluminum in drinking water or in certain jobs have been linked to more cases of Alzheimer's disease over time, although other research found no such link. So picture this in your mind. You have a bit of aluminum in your water, a little in your food, a little from medications, and on top of that, the way you cook and wrap your meals adds a bit more. For a 20-year-old with perfect kidneys and a brain that bounces back from anything, this might not be a big deal. But for a 75-year-old with slower kidneys and maybe some early changes in the brain, that extra bit might matter more. Now, the big question then is what happens when you cook with foil? Studies show that when you wrap food in foil and heat it, especially at high temperatures, small amounts of aluminum can move from the foil into the food. That is called leaching. This leaching is much higher when the food is acidic like tomatoes, or citrus salty like marinated meats, or spicy, and when you bake or grill at very high heat for a long time. So think of a tray of lemon chicken wrapped tightly in foil or fish with tomato sauce sealed and baked. That situation pulls more aluminum into your dinner than briefly covering a room temperature sandwich for an hour. Now here is the key nuance. When health agencies and independent reviewers look at these leaching studies, they almost always come to a similar conclusion. Yes, the aluminum content in the food goes up, but based on what we know right now, those levels are usually still considered below current safety limits for most healthy adults, and there is no direct proof that this everyday use of foil causes Alzheimer's or cancer. That is why you will see many experts saying that aluminum from cookware or foil is not a confirmed risk factor for Alzheimer's disease, and that the aluminum theory is not strongly supported as a main cause. So you might be wondering then why am I telling you to stop wrapping your food in this foil all the time? Because two truths can sit side by side. First, we do not have proof that your baked potato in foil is going to cause Alzheimer's. Second, if you are over 60, have a higher vulnerability to metals and toxins. And there are very simple swaps you can make that bring your exposure down even further. Why not do them? Especially when those swaps also protect you from other kitchen dangers like lead from cheap imported cookware, which absolutely is linked to nerve damage and brain problems. Some low-quality metal pots and pans can leach harmful metals into food, especially when cooking acidic dishes. That is not a maybe, that is real, and your brain does not like it. So in my view, we are not talking about panic. We are talking about smart housekeeping for your brain. Let us walk through some specific changes you can make. Starting today, changes that will quietly reduce unnecessary aluminum and other metal exposure from your kitchen while also supporting brain health in bigger ways. First, ease away from baking or grilling acidic and salty foods directly in aluminum foil whenever you can. If you love your salmon with lemon, your tomato-based chicken, or your marinated kebabs, you do not have to give those up. But instead of wrapping the food tightly in foil and throwing it into a very hot oven or onto the grill, use a barrier. For example, you can put a layer of parchment paper between the food and the foil. Or better yet, cook in a glass or ceramic dish with a lid. That simple step can cut the amount of aluminum that leaches into those juicy acidic sauces, while still giving you tender, tasty food. Imagine two meals. In one, the fish is marinated in lemon and wrapped in foil for 40 minutes at high heat. In the other, the same fish sits on parchment in a glass dish with a cover. The second meal will likely have much less metal exposure. For someone over 60 whose brain has already lived through decades of environmental triggers, that is a gentle, easy win. Second, avoid storing wet, salty leftovers directly wrapped in foil for long periods. This is a very common habit. You finish dinner, there is some meat or pasta left in the pan. You tear off a sheet of foil, throw it over the top, and slide it into the fridge. The food sits there overnight or sometimes for a couple of days in constant contact with the foil. Over time, particularly with moist and salty foods, more aluminum can move into the dish. Instead, try this. Let the food cool a bit and transfer it into a glass container with a lead or a ceramic bowl covered with a plate or reusable cover. If you absolutely misuse foil, keep it as a loose cover and place a piece of parchment or baking paper directly on the food first. It is a tiny extra step, but when you repeat it night after night, year after year, you are quietly reducing one more drip of aluminum into your system. Third, be gentle with your kidneys and bones by looking at the bigger aluminum picture, not just foil. As we age, our kidneys tend to slow down. They may not filter metals and toxins as efficiently as they once did, especially if you have diabetes, high blood pressure, or kidney disease. That means that what used to be a harmless trickle of aluminum might stick around a bit longer in your body. Some of it can end up in bone and in brain tissue. So, along with adjusting how you use foil, talk with your doctor about your overall exposure. If you take antacids or other medications that contain aluminum regularly, ask whether there are alternatives and whether your kidney function is being monitored. Do not stop any medication on your own, but do open the conversation. You deserve to know how all these pieces add up. Fourth, pay attention to the quality of your cookware because this is one area where the danger can be far more real than foil alone. Recently, regulators have warned that some inexpensive imported aluminum and brass pots and pans were leaching not just aluminum, but also lead into food, especially when used to cook acidic dishes. Lead is not like aluminum. There is no safe level of lead for the brain. It can raise blood pressure, damage nerves, and harm memory and thinking even in adults. So if you have very old, badly scratched aluminum pots from an unknown brand or cheap unlabeled pans bought at the market, years ago it may be time to retire them. Replace them slowly, piece by piece, with safer options, like stainless steel cast iron, good quality enamel, or heat-safe glass and ceramic. Again, you do not have to throw out your entire kitchen tonight. But maybe the next time your budget allows one new pan, make it a safe, long-lasting one. Think of it as a gift to your future brain. Fifth, balance what might be a small uncertain risk with things we know clearly protect your brain. Here's the good news. While the aluminum story is still being untangled, scientists are very clear about other steps that really do reduce dementia risk. Regular physical activity, even just brisk walking most days of the week, can improve blood flow to your brain and help grow new connections between brain cells. Keeping your blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol in healthy ranges makes a huge difference over time. A Mediterranean style way of eating with lots of vegetables, fruits like berries, whole grains, beans, olive oil, nuts, and fish has been linked again and again with lower rates of cognitive decline. There is also a pattern called the mind diet, which focuses even more on brain-friendly foods, and people who follow it even imperfectly tend to show slower memory decline. So if you combine slightly smarter use of foil and cookware with these big proven habits, you are stacking the deck in your favor from multiple angles. Let us pause here for a moment. If this is making sense so far and you're finding it useful, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps get this information in front of other seniors who may be scared by headlines but do not know the real story. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is a great time because we have more brain protecting tips coming. Now let us talk briefly about what might actually be happening in the brain with aluminum, and I promise to keep it simple. In Alzheimer's disease, certain proteins in the brain, such as beta amyloid and tau, misfold and clump together, forming plaques and tangles. They damage brain cells and interfere with communication between them. Some laboratory studies have shown that aluminum can encourage proteins to misfold and clump in similar ways, at least in animals and in cells in dishes. And small amounts of aluminum have been found in some plaques in human brains. But this is very important. We still do not know if the aluminum is causing the damage or if it is just getting stuck in tissue that is already sick for other reasons. In fact, some large observational study found no clear relationship between aluminum in water and dementia, while others did. Many experts emphasize that there is no strong proof that everyday aluminum in food and cookware increases dementia risk. So the best way to think about this, especially as someone over 60, is like this. Your brain is like a beautiful old house. Over time, some pipes rust, some wires fray, and storms hit the roof. Aluminum might be one small leak in the roof. Not the whole problem, but not helpful either, especially if that leak is easy to patch. At the same time, there are bigger things like high blood pressure, smoking, uncontrolled diabetes, loneliness, and depression that are like huge holes in the walls. Those need your attention even more urgently. Now let us move into very practical territory, what to do instead of relying on foil all the time and how to turn your kitchen into a brain-friendly zone without feeling deprived. Start with your go-to habits. If you often roast vegetables wrapped in foil, try roasting them directly on a baking tray lined with parchment paper, or in a glass or ceramic dish. You still get the caramelized flavor, but with less contact with metal. If you bake potatoes by wrapping them tightly in foil, consider baking them unwrapped on the oven rack or placing them on a parchment-lined tray and covering them loosely with a second tray like a lid. The skin may even get crispier, which is a nice little bonus. If you like to grill, I know foil packets are convenient, but you can use grill baskets, cast iron pans made for the grill, or again parchment inside foil so the paper touches the food and the foil only touches the paper. This way, you keep most of the juices and seasonings without bathing your dinner directly in metal. For leftover storage, let us paint a little picture. After dinner, instead of leaving the food in a metal pan covered with foil, imagine yourself transferring it into a clear glass container. You can see exactly what is inside it. Reheats nicely, and you are reducing contact with both aluminum and any other metals that might be in that old pan. Over time, that simple routine becomes second nature. You're not just putting food away, you're putting your future brain away in a safer place too. Now, while we are in the kitchen, we have a perfect opportunity to talk about brain-nourishing foods that can work with your new foil habits. More leafy greens such as spinach, kale, and romaine. More colorful vegetables like peppers, carrots, and beets. A handful of berries several times a week. Walnuts, almonds, and other nuts in small portions. Fish like salmon, sardines, or mackerel once or twice a week. These foods are rich in antioxidants and healthy fats that support your brain cells and reduce inflammation. So maybe you cut back on foil-wrapped, heavily marinated barbecue meats and swap a couple of those meals for grilled fish in a cast iron pan with olive oil and herbs plus a big plate of vegetables. That is not just fewer metals, it is also more brain fuel. This is what I mean by smarter strategies. We are not only removing things, we are adding better things in their place. You might be wondering if it is too late for you. You might be thinking, I'm already 72. I have used foil every day for years. What is the point of changing now? I want you to hear this very clearly. It is not too late to make a change. The brain is not a dead organ. It is alive, it repairs, it grows new connections even in later life. People in their 70s, 80s, even 90s can see improvements in energy, mood clarity, and mobility when they tweak their habits. You do not have to be perfect. Every little improvement is like opening a window and letting fresh air into that beautiful old house. Let us recap where we are in simple terms. Aluminum in very high long-term doses may be linked with a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease, but the evidence is mixed and mostly comes from drinking water and certain jobs, not from your kitchen foil. Everyday use of foil has not been proven to cause Alzheimer's. However, foil can leach small amounts of aluminum into food, especially acidic and salty dishes, cooked at high heat, or stored for a long time, and as we age, our bodies may handle metals less efficiently. At the same time, there are real well-documented dangers from other kitchen sources, such as lead leaching from some cheaper imported cookware, which is absolutely harmful to the brain. Putting all that together, it is sensible, especially if you are over 60, to reduce unnecessary aluminum exposure, where it is easy to do so to upgrade your cookware when possible, and to focus strongly on proven brain protective habits, like staying active, eating a Mediterranean-style diet, and managing your blood pressure and blood sugar. If you are still with me, first of all, I'm proud of you. This is not light entertainment. This is your health, your independence, your future. If you are determined to stay strong and keep learning, type A1 in the comments. If you disagree or you are not sure yet, you can type 0 and tell me why. I welcome every voice here. As we come toward the end of this video, I want to speak to the emotional side for a moment. I know getting older can feel frightening at times. When you forget a name, stumble on a word, or feel weaker in your legs, it is easy to jump straight to worst-case ideas in your mind and picture yourself losing your independence. Scary headlines about Alzheimer's and everyday items in your home do not help. They can make you feel like danger is lurking in every corner of the kitchen. Take a deep breath with me. You are not powerless here. Your body, including your brain, is always trying to heal, repair, and protect you. Our job, yours and the mine, is not to be perfect, but to give that body better conditions to do its job. That might mean using a little less foil and a little more parchment and glass. It might mean going for a 20-minute walk after dinner instead of sitting down right away. It might mean swapping one sugary dessert for a bowl of berries and yogurt a couple of nights a week. It might mean finally asking your doctor to check your blood pressure, your blood sugar, or your kidney function, and talking honestly about your medications. Every one of those steps is small on its own, but together they form a powerful message to your brain and that you are still in this and still taking care of yourself. Growing older does not mean growing weaker. It means getting wiser about where we put our effort. We cannot control everything, but we can control a lot more than we sometimes think. So to wrap this up, remember this. Your foil is not a ticking time bomb, but it is not a magic harmless shield either. Think of it as one little piece of a much bigger puzzle. Use it less for hot, acidic, salty cooking. Avoid long-term storage in direct contact with food. Gradually move towards safer pots and pans and fill your plate and your days with brain-friendly choices. Your independence does not rest in the roll of foil. It rests in your daily habits, your movement, your food, your sleep, your social connections, and your willingness to keep learning and adjusting. And you have already taken a big step just by watching this far. Now, I would love to hear from you. Which part of this surprised you the most? Have you been using foil every day, or have you already made some changes? Have you noticed any difference in how you feel when you eat fresher, less processed, more home-cooked meals? Share your experiences and your questions in the comments below. I read them, and your story might be exactly what another person needs to hear to make a change. If this video helped you even a little, please hit the like button. It tells me this content is useful and helps more seniors find it in the sea of confusing health advice. And if you have not subscribed yet, consider doing that and turning on notifications so you do not miss future videos on keeping your brain sharp, your joints moving, and your heart strong in your 60s, 70s, and beyond. Your health and independence are worth fighting for, and we are in this together. Until next time, stay strong, stay curious, and keep taking those small, smart steps. They add up to big strides in your freedom and your peace of mind.